Well, Cucks, we can't have a hater mania without having a video dedicated exclusively to everyone's favorite indie promotion, All Elite Wrestling, or as some people, have different little fun names in the comment sections. I'm not gonna talk about those names now because the hell, right at the cop sirens. I live in a nice area, motherfuckers. But anyways, let me tell y'all this, Cucks. Isn't that crazy? The cops just drove past, right? I'm sure in whatever cities you guys are at, there's cops there too, you know, keeping us safe. Maybe it's the fire department. Who knows? Who cares? Shout out the cops. But now let's talk about AEW, All Elite Cock Wrestling, all right? The hype of AEW, in my opinion, is coming to an end, motherfuckers. The hype is almost over. You know, they have this next pay-per-view to really do something. You know, I expect at minimum there should be like a debut of some sort at this next pay-per-view. Just like a guy who just appears and he's like, I'm here, motherfuckers. It's me, like Jimmy or whatever, right? Someone, it has to be a big name. It can't be a pretend big name like Jack Swagger. Like my friend, he was like, when Jack Swagger, debuted, it must have been at a pay-per-view or something because I didn't watch it. Or for some reason I didn't see it. Or like I was watching it late and he like ruined it for me. But in some capacity, when Jack Swagger debuted, my friend texted me and he was like, you'll never believe it. Like he completely like overhyped it, right? He's like, Jake Hager is now, like, dude, we both know he's fucking Jack Swagger, you know, just call him what he is. Jack Swagger. Nobody knows him as Jake Hager. No one cares about him as Jake Hager. So he's like, Jake Hager just debuted in All Elite. Oh, Vince is mad. Like this person is like, he's like a real life smart. You know, he's like a real life parody of the smarts that I talk about. And I'm just like, dude, who cares? Like I told him, I was like, who gives a shit, man? That's not big enough news. Like, would you react this way if Jack Swagger went to TNA? No, you'd laugh. You'd laugh like you did when like Ezekiel Jackson and Gene Snitsky appeared in TNA for a little bit. It's the same thing. You know, Jack Swagger was a former champion, but he's the same caliber of guy as Ezekiel Jackson and Gene Snitsky. He's the same thing, right? So, like, that's all that's left for AEW is just like debut Gene Snitsky and call him like Snitchy Gene or something like that, and pretend that's a big deal. Oh, Vince was upset that they signed Gene Snitsky. Oh, how can WWE recover from this? I don't know, stupid. Maybe they'll just ignore the fact that they signed Jack Swagger, who doesn't even wrestle. Who gives a balls? Anyways, the point I'm trying to make is this, right? So when they debuted Jack Swagger, people pretended it was a big deal. But there comes a point where you can't pretend that anymore, right? Like, you at least... And here's the difference, right? When other people debut, like Butcher and Blade, when they debut, it's not a big deal at all. Like, people are like, oh, we don't know who the fuck these guys are. No one cares. Like, I'm not excited by the fact that, oh, this new person is here, right? But when Dean Ambrose debuts, and think about it, if Dean Ambrose had ever been to like WWE, he had just stayed as Jon Moxley, no one would care. He would be like on the same level as like Jimmy Havoc. That's the thing, motherfuckers. That's what WWE does. WWE legitimately makes stars. If Dean Ambrose never went to WWE, he would be literally Jimmy Havoc. It would he probably look like that too. He would become that guy, right? There's nothing inherently better about him than Jimmy Havoc, right? Except for the fact that he's in better shape, I guess. But other than that, wrestling-wise, he's the same. So riddle me this, Cuts. Riddle me this, right? With all I just said in mind, right? Do you not see what I'm saying? It has to be a big star that comes into AEW to pretty much save them. And that, in and of itself, is indicative of the state they are in. Now, I'm sure people will disagree. They're going to be like, no, they don't need a new star. Yeah, they do, motherfuckers. They need a star. They need them to either make someone or get someone. The thing about TNA that was awesome was that TNA consistently made stars. It took some WWE jobbers and made them into stars, right? Like Ron Killings. Ron Killings never really had like a chance in WWE, you know? He came in with Road Dogg. He was a young guy, and it was right during the time when bigger things were happening. You know what I mean? Like the invasion angle and all that other shit. So he had to get lost in the shuffle by virtue of that, you know? A lot of people during the invasion angle got the short end of the dick. You know what I'm saying? They really did, because like there were people that were good, but because the invasion angle had now essentially twice the stars than WWE had before, right? So you had like, of course, The Rock and Stone Cold and Kurt Angle, who was like an up and coming star, right? Kane, Undertaker, but now all of a sudden you had like the WCW guys too, like DDP, who also like, became a jobber eventually, but Booker T, some of the people that they really wanted to push, like that had recently come in from ECW, like RVD, things like that. There's only so many people you can push. You know what I mean? Jericho was getting a push, and there wasn't enough time for people like R-Truth, because there was also even though WCW was kind of short on main eventers, just because like the real stars weren't part of that like acquisition, they still had a lot of mid-carders that needed pushes, like people like Lance Storm, who were like had like very good runs in WCW, like near the end. You know what I mean? A bunch of people like that really did get the short end of the stick eventually. Just because there wasn't enough, enough to do. And R-Truth is one of them. TNA made him into a star, but at the same time, TNA made stars like AJ Styles, right? Christopher Daniels. At a certain point, Chris Sabian, Petey Williams, right? The X Division was pretty much all just TNA guys. They were like from nowhere else. They were just TNA guys, and they had like Elix Skipper from WCW, who was awesome, And in the heavyweight division, they had like Abyss, like their own take on Kane, basically. They had Monty Brown. Remember Monty Brown, motherfucks? That guy should have had at least one title run. Like Jeff Jarrett's like 7,000 TNA or whatever, like NWA title runs. One of those should have been a Monty Brown title run. He deserved it. And the only thing that sucked when Christian Cage debuted was that his first feud was against Monty Brown, and Christian Cage is my favorite wrestler of all time. But even I was like, nah, man, Monty Brown deserves better than this, And then what happened was this. TNA fucked up because they started bringing in all these like new stars, and they stopped making their own stars. People like Bobby Roode got like pushed way too late. They dropped the ball on Bobby Roode. Bobby Roode was great, but they didn't have time to push him because they kept having like Kurt Angle, Booker T, better people. Like Samoa Joe, his push was botched, right? There are people that deserved it, and AEW is doing the same exact thing, cunts. They're doing the same things. No AEW star has been made. And at this point, even though they're still a new company, right? They're not new enough to have no indicia of like a star being made, right? There should have been one guy, like I've said before, there should have been one guy who was like undefeated, like low-key undefeated. It could have been like Darby Allin, right? Don't have him lose these bullshit matches, but some guy, like the best candidate would have been like MJF or like a new guy like Wardlow or something, right? But just some guy that's just like winning, right? I remember when WCW went out of business, there was this one guy, I forget his name, he was like completely irrelevant, but he debuted like 5 weeks before WCW, went under, before they were bought, right? They debuted this guy, like I forget his name, but he had like all these like interesting moves, like he had like the Orange Crush Powerbomb, like that kind of shit, I forget his name, he was irrelevant, right? But he stood out at the time because he was undefeated, like he wasn't beating like Booker T, he was beating jobbers, but he was undefeated, And had WCW continued, or had WWE signed him and continued to push him, let's say, that would have been nice. That would have made sense. It would have been like, oh, well, let's not remember this guy. He was undefeated in WCW, beating like Chavo Guerrero and people of that caliber, But what happened, Cox, was that they did do that, and that guy like faded into obscurity. He probably works for AEW in some capacity. But AEW needs to learn from that mistake, and they need to it might be too late. So now they've already shifted their brand, if you will, towards the other side, and the other side is not make your own stars, but take people that are stars already, or that at least have some name recognition, because it doesn't matter. If you've been to a WWE live show, right? Like, I went back in the day to I forget what it was. It was like some WWE pay-per-view, maybe like 10-ish years ago, right? And it was a fun little pay-per-view. Maybe it was like a little bit, like 15 years ago, who cares, right? But it was a fun little pay-per-view. And the show started, I was there early. There wasn't much to watch. Then they had a dark match, right? It was like two jabros. Nobody knew who the fuck these guys were. No one cared, right? The fans didn't react at all. Then they had a dark match where they had a hometown hero beat some jobber, right? These are I guess the pre-dark matches, the ones that you don't even hear about. Then the next match was some tag team. I forget who the tag team was. It was some local tag team. And they lost to Jesse and Festus. This was a pay-per-view. This was either the dark match or a pre-show match, a velocity match, where the fuck it was, Sunday Heat. Didn't matter, right? No, it wasn't. It was a pre-show match, right? So Jesse and Festus, right, beat a tag team, and the pop that Jesse and Festus got was significant, considering they were a jobber team, because you see them on TV, so no matter what, they feel like stars. That's why people like Ty Dillinger have a job in AEW, because at least you recognize them and they get some sort of pop. Now, when you give Ty Dillinger this elaborate entrance where he's sitting on a chair like he's some star, like he's like some big shot, right, with his blue contacts looking like a retard, right? When you do that, now that's a mistake. That's like not knowing what you have on your hands. What you have on your hands is a jobber, you know? But he's a jobber with a name. You understand what I'm saying? That's why, like, periodically on my phone, I get messages from various little independent wrestling companies that somehow have my number, right? I guess when I bought a ticket online or something, right? And I get, like, one time I got a message, it was Matt Hardy, like, Broken Matt Hardy. It was like a few years ago, right? And he's like, "This is Broken Matt. You should come to the next show where I'll be there," right? And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's kind of cool," because he's a known name, right? And they have people, like, call you to be like, "Oh, I'm Ty Dillinger. You should come check me out." And I'm just like, "Oh, I don't give a fuck," right? So that's what I'm saying, right? AEW has already shifted. The hype is over. They've shifted now to trying to find new hype, right? The mistake was this. When they started, instead of focusing on the elite as if they're some entity, right? What they should have done is this. Either make the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega tag champs and champ respectively, because that's all they have. That's kind of their own. You know, like Kenny Omega is a New Japan guy, but now he can be repackaged as like their own shit, right? Which I was not a fan of them doing that. What I was a fan of was something like this. Make Jericho the champion for like a month or two. Then in those 2 months, spend every episode you have, every pay-per-view you do, spend at least 10, 15 minutes pushing a new guy to become like the guy that beats Jericho in 2 months, maybe 3 months, right? Then, after that, have a guy in the background who's undefeated. And then these guys can be presented as stars in the future. They have to they have to be stars, but you have to book them as stars as well, right? Now, the closest they've gotten to that is Jungle Boy, which is odd, because Jungle Boy lost every match last year. But he is the closest they've gotten to having a guy that's like, "Oh, look at this guy. This kid's got potential. This kid's got a future," right? Him and I guess MJF. But MJF has not wrestled nearly enough. So none of this has been going well. So now at the next pay-per-view, AEW finds itself looking for a star. Looking for as the French say, motherfuckers, raison d'être, which means a reason to be, a reason to exist. Why should AEW exist if they're not doing anything, right? They should exist because now they have, let's say, John Cena, right? Oh shit, that's what John Cena is? That's cool. Let's check it out. The Jericho hype is dying down. Jericho can only do it so much, motherfuckers. You know, it's not as suspenseful when you just see Jericho again and again, and you're like, "Oh, it's Jericho, big deal," you know? Like it's okay, he's gonna fight Dean Ambrose now, which was an IC title feud back in WWE. Now it's like a world title feud, whatever, right? For no reason whatsoever. So that's what I gotta say about that, motherfuckers. The hype for AEW is dying down, and because they did not, and did not even try to make their own stars, so that it felt good, so that like they could one day be like, "Oh, look at this guy that we've made, this homegrown talent, this like our AJ Styles or our Monty Brown or our Abyss, right? This guy can exist with Jericho and Cody, right? He doesn't have to lose to them. They just avoid each other completely." You know, has Cody Rhodes wrestled Sonny Kiss? No. Why? Because Sonny Kiss has wrestled no one. Now imagine when you have two people on opposite sides, right? I don't think Cody Rhodes has wrestled Pac yet either. You know? But imagine if Pac was undefeated, but it wasn't Pac. Instead of Pac, it was someone more compelling, right? Who was not a WWE guy, right? And you market this guy as like someone that people like, and then he becomes your star. I mean, of course, eventually he's going to go to WWE, but you run that risk. But hopefully he gets you to the next level, right? Where now you've attracted some new independent talent that you can build up, right? And then you grow slowly like that, like TNA did. There was a point when like some ROH person, right? The question, it was a legitimate question. Would this person prefer to go to TNA or WWE? The money was almost the same. TNA, like the guaranteed money was almost the same. You know, it wasn't seen as going down. Because people like Kurt Angle, Christian, people that were like super over and super successful at the peaks of their careers were going to TNA. You know, it wasn't the inferior brand. Now, for someone to leave WWE, that's why these people are like, "Oh, Matt Hardy should go to AEW." Dude, no one's going to go to AEW unless they have to go to AEW. No one's gonna voluntarily choose to leave WWE to go to AEW. But people were doing that for TNA. And the reason people are not gonna choose that is because what the fuck benefit does Matt Hardy get from being the leader of the Dark Order, a jobber group in a jobber fed? Do you understand what I'm saying? Of course you understand what I'm saying. And that's all there is to it, Cuts. That's literally all there is to it. There isn't much more to be said other than what I've just said. Like, they need to find something. I've been saying this for weeks. They need to find something. But now I fear that it is, like, the hype is finally over. They haven't, like, this month, right, which will go by fast, motherfuckers. They have this month to find someone, right? To find someone to debut at the pay-per-view and make a big impact, right? Someone that comes in with a power finisher, beats up everybody in a ring, like just like they had Brock Lesnar come in to WWE back in the day. Something like that. They didn't do it. They can blow me. That's what I gotta say about that, cucks. So, AEW, if they don't do that, then they will just be obscure. Eventually, Jericho will lose the title. Whoever beats him, maybe Dean Ambrose, maybe Kenny Omega, will draw in significantly fewer viewers. Because I have a feeling that after Jericho loses, he'll be gone for a week or two at least, right? To kind of put this other champion over. And the ratings are going to go down. Once the ratings start going down legitimately, then it gets in your head. If you're AEW, you're like, oh, why do they go down? Is it because people want Jericho to be champion again? They're going to put the title back on Jericho, let's say, right? That's not going to bring them up again. People are like, I've already seen that. You know? That's when this new star would be relevant. You bring him in, you're like, oh, it's fresh. Like this guy, like Brian Cage. Like they signed Brian Cage as far as the rumor goes, I guess, right? Brian Cage should have been that guy from day one. Day one. You have this company, you sign Brian Cage. Brian Cage just destroys everyone. You put him in there against like Darby Allin, right? Against the Librarian. Against these jobbers, right? These small men. And he just manhandles them and destroys them. Pulverizes them completely. Right? Until, like, the logical conclusion. Jericho loses the title. Let's say Dean Ambrose becomes champion. And then now, boom, motherfuckers. Did I say Brian Alvarez? Brian Cage. Brian Cage comes in and is like, yo, I'm undefeated. I'm here to whoop your ass. Right? And then he just destroys him. He squashes the champion clean, becomes the champion. Then, now you have the next chapter of the story. Who can beat this guy? Right? The answer then becomes your next star. Your next star can beat this guy. Someone like, I don't know, stupids, maybe Kenny Omega, the guy that you're going to build this company around, right? That's what I'm saying, man. You have to think of these things. These things don't just happen. You have to plan for them and execute them, right? But they didn't do that. Instead, Brian Cage was jobbing to Tessa Blanchard, and now, honestly, his wrestling, like his kayfabe, like stock has dropped. But of course, it really hasn't because he's still fucking Brian Cage, one of the most underrated wrestlers right now, in my opinion. So there you have it, cucks. AEW, unless they do something like that, they are fucked.